Welcome to NBA Today. I'm George Sedano in for Malika Andrews. We're just hours, 24 hours or so away from the NBA draft. We've got Jay Billis stopping by in a couple of minutes. He'll have the latest on Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, and Jabari Smith, and much, much more. But we begin with Kyrie Irving, who has until June 29th to opt in or decline his $36.5 million player option for next season. If he opts in, Irving would be eligible for an extension with the Nets or could play out the season and become a free agent in 2023. If Irving declines the option, he becomes a free agent this year, but would still be eligible to sign a max deal with the Nets if they're willing to offer it. Now, let's welcome in our senior ESPN NBA insider, Adrian Wojnarowski. So, Woj, you got a piece on ESPN.com about Kyrie Irving's looming contract decision. What is in the balance here for Kyrie Irving?
Well, I think for Kyrie Irving and the Nets is, of course, first of all, does he return to Brooklyn? Now, his options outside of the Nets, especially if the Nets are not willing or don't get engaged in sign and trade talks, are limited. There are not teams with cap space. Teams with space are perhaps not teams he would be interested in, and perhaps I don't think are interested in him. Now, the Lakers are considered the most significant threat right now for Kyrie Irving, but that would essentially entail him taking $30 million less than he can opt into in Brooklyn. There's a $6 million taxpayer exemption he could sign with the Lakers with. Now, most people would say a player's not going to give up that much money, but Kyrie Irving gave up nearly $17 million last year because of his refusal to get vaccinated. He lost a significant shoe deal with Nike, or is in the process of losing that shoe deal with Nike. So I think that the Nets have gone into this with their eyes open, that it's possible he could walk. He has done things differently in his career, but I think there's a sweet spot for the Nets and for Kyrie Irving to find a deal. And if they don't, how does that impact Kevin Durant's future with the Nets? All of that's at stake this week.
Yeah, and that's my follow-up here. Where does Kevin Durant lie in all of this?
And this is the real difficult position for Brooklyn because Kevin Durant remains very connected to Kyrie Irving. They came here together, and they are still together. Kevin Durant wants Kyrie Irving back. And what the Nets are risking, if Kyrie Irving does leave, does Kevin Durant then ask for a trade? Now, he just signed an extension last season. He's got 4 years left. It's difficult to ask for a trade with that much time left on your deal, and it's certainly difficult to dictate perhaps where you would like to go. The Nets want to avoid all of that. And certainly, I think Kyrie Irving's best leverage right now is the pressure that Kevin Durant is putting on the organization. And listen, there are other players. It has not been easy to keep role players in Brooklyn and to recruit role players in Brooklyn, especially with all the drama around Irving. And that impacts how they build the team too. But ultimately, Kevin Durant is the epicenter of this organization. And the Nets, in one hand, are trying to stay disciplined on an extension. They want to do a short-term deal with Kyrie Irving. He can opt into that $46 million, as you said, or he can opt out and get as much as $42 million in the first year of a new deal. But he wants a long-term max deal. That's not available to him right now in Brooklyn, nor is it available to him anywhere else. So, listen, there's going to be a lot of back and forth as the Nets, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant move forward. But no question, there's a great deal at stake. This was a grand experiment in Brooklyn, having Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and, of course, James Harden all together. And, what the Nets, of course, are trying to avoid is a scenario where Kyrie Irving leaves and then Kevin Durant says to them, I'd like to play somewhere else.
Yeah, and I'm sure all the other teams around the league are certainly looking at that situation, trying to see if they can pry any of those pieces away, but particularly Kevin Durant. It feels like the Nets are certainly, dealing with a tightrope here in regards to this particular situation. But with that Kyrie contract, regardless of what it is, Do you expect there to be clauses about games played or things of that nature? Do we even know if that's a possibility?
It's a negotiation, George, and I think in a perfect world, yeah, I'm sure the Nets would like to have some protections and some incentive for Kyrie Irving to be on the court. And if he does a short-term deal this year, that could potentially set him up to do a bigger deal next year, either whether it's at Brooklyn or whether it's somewhere else. Certainly, him being available, playing, performing at a high level would all be part of that. And certainly, like any other player, Kyrie Irving wants that money guaranteed. And so that's where it's going to be a negotiation. And that's, that tightrope that the Nets are walking, because if Irving does walk on them, decides to go play somewhere else, how that impacts Kevin Durant, is certainly integral to the future of this organization.
Yeah, no question about it. What a time, certainly, in Brooklyn, and I don't envy their position at all. He's the best in the business. Adrian Wojnarowski joining us here, ESPN NBA senior insider. You're the man, Woj. Thanks for the time, as always.
Thank you, George.
You got it. All right, we now bring in NBA champion Matt Barnes and 15-year NBA vet J.J. Redick, who's in New York. So, Matt, let's start with you. If you were on the Nets, would you want Kyrie as your teammate right now?
Absolutely, because you obviously have a personal relationship with them, the guys in the locker room. I'm sure the guys in the locker room still love him. They just want him to commit. And, the fact that we're talking about can he get a max, should he get a max, the talent is undoubtable. What they're debating on is the character and the want and the will to compete every single day with the rest of your teammates. And like Sean Mark said, someone who's going to put the team above themselves. And Kyrie, it's no secret. Although we respect the vaccination decision, because that's an individual decision for everyone. He's been a very selfish person and a selfish player, and he's left a franchise in limbo. He's left a good friend Kevin Durant in limbo. But all people want to see is, can this guy commit? So if he plays out this final year in the contract and shows, plays 60 to 70 games, 72 games, next season, there's no doubt he's going to get a max contract. People just want to know, can we rely on you when we need you? And the answer so far has been no. But I'm thinking he's going to hear this all. We're already tired of talking about, but this is just beginning. He's going to hear this all the entire summer, and maybe something will get through to him.
JJ, what's your reaction to all this noise surrounding Kyrie?
Well, there's always posturing. There's always smoke and mirrors. People are looking for leverage. Players do it. Teams do it. Agents do it. This is really nothing new to the NBA. I do think the idea that if Kyrie were to walk and Kevin Durant was to request a trade, that would be an absolute disaster for the Brooklyn Nets. And if you look at the history of them when they moved from New Jersey, the trade to the Celtics where they gave up draft picks to get Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Jason Terry, that didn't work out. Then there was a few years where they weren't very good. They were rebuilding. They brought in Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson. They built this culture. And then they used that culture and that promise of a better future to leverage that into signing Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving as a package deal. Then they traded away a lot of that depth, guys like Karis LeVert and Jared Allen, D'Angelo Russell, the people who helped build this culture. And now 3 years in, without a conference finals appearance, without an NBA finals appearance, you're essentially starting over. And look, if Kevin Durant asked for a trade, sure, you'd get back a package and some draft picks and all that. But the goal was, when those guys signed, to get a championship. And if that were to not happen in this era, that's a failure.
So in the conversation I just had with Woj, and the story that he wrote, he talked about how Kyrie, because we can't get in his head, right? Maybe he's trying to use the Lakers as leverage with the taxpayer mid-level exemption. JJ, do you believe that's even possible? Do you think that's a real threat by Kyrie?
I can't get in Kyrie's head either. My gut tells me that Kyrie Irving will be in a Brooklyn Nets uniform to start next season. How we get there, I don't know. I don't know if that's opting out, re-signing a deal, signing an extension. I get why Kyrie Irving, a player of his stature, would not want stipulations in his contract. He is a max level talent. And Matt Barnes said that on the show yesterday. Kyrie is a max level talent. There's just so many questions right now about availability and reliability. that I get the discomfort for the Nets in offering him that right now.
He's someone that loves the element of surprise. So I wouldn't be surprised if he signed for whatever another team is going to give him if that situation made him feel more comfortable. But the crazy thing to me is the Nets necessarily that we know haven't done anything to mess up. He's been doing more to them than they've been doing to him. They've rolled the red carpet out. They thought, like JJ said, this big, plan was to come and bring some championships to Brooklyn, to found a new foundation and a new team in that city. But it's kind of been him doing the issue. So to me, I don't understand why you would really want to leave Brooklyn in the first place. They've been nothing but welcoming. You got Kevin Durant over there with you. You got a great coach in Steve Nash, or who can really, if he opened up his mind, probably help Kyrie out there on the court at some point. So really, again, it's really going to be up to Kyrie and him getting tired of us talking about him every single day until a decision's made. Because again, the talent is unmatched, but sometimes talent isn't enough when you're trying to build something.
Matt, would you?
I was just going to jump in here, and I just wanted to point out, I agree completely with Matt that the best scenario for Kyrie is to remain as a Brooklyn Net and play alongside Kevin Durant. Joe Harris is back from an injury. Ben Simmons is back from an injury. They have a real chance to be a great basketball team next year if Kyrie Irving is on the floor. And the assumption is that he will be on the floor and available way more than he was this season and way more than he was in that first season. And obviously we can go down the list of all the different reasons why he's missed games, but you have to assume that he will be on the basketball floor for at least 60 to 70 games next season, and they have a real chance to be a good team if that's the case.
All right, let me play the role of NBA Twitter here and ask you the question that seems preposterous on the surface.
So you got to say we're hating right now, because NBA Twitter, whenever you have an opinion, it's all hate. So
No. It's the type of questions you get in the mentions. And you're like, right. So, would you like to see a LeBron-Kyrie reunion, Matt?
No, I would like to see KD and Kyrie finish what they started.
Okay.
Again, I'm a fan of the Desai family, what they've been able to do over there, the way they've kind of been able to build a culture over there. But Kyrie is a big piece of that. And again, we ask, if I'm a role player over there, would I want Kyrie back? Absolutely, because I know what he's capable of. I just need to know, again, as a teammate, are you going to be there? And is there anyone that could, does Kevin Durant have the kind of friendship with him where he can look him in his eyes, sit him down? Can you tell me, can you be, outside of injury that we don't know what's going to happen, will you be there for me? Will you be my wingman? Can I be your wingman? Are we going to go out there and do what we planned on doing?
I think JJ just muted me on Twitter for asking that NBA Twitter question, basically. It's okay, JJ. I get you.
NBA
I saw you
Twitter
laughing.
is exhausting, George. You know that.
Hence why I wanted to get it in there a little bit. I wanted to make sure that we know that somebody is on NBA Twitter's side on this show. Smith has emerged as the favorite to be the first overall pick in tomorrow night's draft at minus 280 odds, according to Caesars Sportsbook. That equates to about 74% chance that he will be the first player off the board. Then it's Paolo Banchero of Duke at plus 280, and Chet Holmgren now has plus 550 odds to be the first overall pick. We now welcome in ESPN college basketball analyst and NBA draft guru, Jay Bilas. So we just heard from Jabari, Chet, and Paolo on what it would mean to be the number one pick. But Jay, who do you think the Magic should take at number one?
Well, I think it's a two-horse race between Holmgren and Smith. And Holmgren is unique. He's got some Giannis tendencies in his game, not the same body style, maybe the same when Giannis came into the league, but he certainly improved that. But I still lean toward Jabari Smith, just a touch. But it's one of the most difficult decisions at number one that I can remember. And look, all three of those guys are going to be all-stars, and I think they're all worthy of the number one pick in most any year, but they're all in this draft, and you have to make a decision, or at least Orlando does. And I tend to lean to Jabari Smith because he's a great shooter. Shot 42% from three, made 79 threes on the year. Really good in the mid-post. He can shoot out the catch or the dribble, and he's a really versatile defender. He can switch out and guard multiple spots, block shots, gets deflections. I think he's got a really high ceiling. It's just when you start talking about Holmgren, in today's NBA, he can be a game changer. He's not a low-post player. He's a perimeter player, and he really can grab a rebound, and he's a guard handler. Can get downhill and spin, finish with his left, his right, dunks everything. he's impressive. It's just, you kind of, for an older guy like me, you got to get over that body. There haven't been that many body styles in the NBA that have been ultra successful. He's built like Sean Bradley, but he's tough and competitive, and he's not shown any injury problems in his career. I think Holmgren's the real deal.
JJ, I'm going to let you to put your GM's cap on. Who would you take number one?
Yeah, there's a number of players. We've talked about Banchero, Chet Holmgren. I also really am high on Jaden Ivey. But for me, it's Jabari Smith. I am very enticed by his size, his skill set, and the position that he plays. I think versatile forwards are so valuable in today's NBA. And because he can shoot the ball and handle, and as Jay said, potentially guard multiple positions, I mean, this is a guy that you can build a franchise around. And that's not to take away anything from Chet Holmgren or take away anything from Paolo. I just think his skill set translates so well to the modern NBA.
I think this is going to be one of those rare situations where you see all three of these guys be better players in the NBA just due to the freedom, the space, and they're all three of their versatilities. I like Jabari at one because of his versatility and the way he can stretch it, but I'll be the devil's advocate and say I'll take Paolo at number one. And I got a chance to read an article about the way he expanded his game during the pandemic back at home in Seattle, working out with guys like Isaiah Thomas, Jamal Crawford, Spencer Hawes. So he continues to develop. Obviously, didn't shoot the three ball percentage-wise as well as possible, but he's someone, again, 6'10", 250, really strong, probably the strongest pro body out of those three guys. And I think actually it's less about body these days because the game is more a skill set instead of strength and power. But I really like his versatility, his ability to take advantage of mismatches. And again, with space, I feel like his game is only going to get better. And I know working with his boys back at home, it's definitely going to improve his jump shot. So I'm going to take Paolo at number one.
Jay, let me ask you this. Beyond the top three, who do you think is the next most NBA-ready player?
Well, JJ mentioned him. I think it's Jaden Ivey, but at number 4, but also Keegan Murray at 5. Keegan Murray from Iowa is probably the one player you can plug into an NBA team today and put him out on the floor and feel really comfortable. He can operate out of the post, the mid-post. You hesitate to say he's ambidextrous, but he uses either hand, and he actually favors his left hand around the basket. Shot 55% from the field, good three-point shooter. I liken him kind of to a more athletic, bigger, longer Malcolm Brogdon because he's just so solid. I mean, he's not going to lead Instagram or SportsCenter top 10s in spectacular plays, but he makes the right play over and over again so often that his numbers at the end of the game are absolutely spectacular. I'm a big fan of Murray's. Who knows? He may be taken 6th or 7th because, Ben Mathurin of Arizona is said to be rising up. And you've got Shaedon Sharpe out of Kentucky and Dyson Daniels out of the G League that are all really attractive long-term prospects. But with Keegan Murray, you're getting a guy you can plug in today and play.
Jay, thank you for joining us, man. Appreciate the time as always.
Always. Thank you.
You got it. Make sure you check it.
Live from Los Angeles.
Gonzaga's Chet Holmgren is one of the prospects who will hear his name called tomorrow night in Brooklyn at the 2022 NBA Draft. Holmgren currently ranked the #1 best prospect by ESPN, attributes his success to his father, thanks to his camcorder, which has also grabbed national attention. Let's take a look.
My dad played for the University of Minnesota. He started recording my basketball games. I think it was like 6th grade. He said I wasn't boxing out, and I told him I am boxing out, and he said he was gonna start recording them so he could show me. I was right, of course. Maybe. So I think my dad started out with like a basic little home video camcorder. He upgraded a couple years ago, and then I think he just upgraded again. And this year, some of the different TV outlets started making the little graphics during the game and showing him recording the games. It was just kind of funny to start seeing the stuff on Twitter. I'm very thankful of everything he's done and the positions he's put me in to help me be successful and be the player I am today.
Chet Holmgren's versatility was on full display in his lone season at Gonzaga. Holmgren had 2 games last season with at least 15 points, 15 boards, 5 assists, and 5 blocks. The rest of the Division I combined didn't do that once. Monica McNutt, our pal, caught up with Holmgren ahead of tomorrow night's draft.
Mark Few said about you, I don't know if there's a comp for him. He's incredibly unique and skilled. That's a big deal, and that's not biased. That's a great basketball mind.
Appreciate that from Few.
What do you think is the strength of your game?
Like he said, my versatility, my ability to do different things, based on what is needed from me that night, that game. Every game's different. Even if you put the same players on the court on the same day of the week, the ball is going to bounce a different way each time. So being able to adjust and do different things is important.
One of the things when your name comes up is strength. Are you at all concerned about your strength?
No, I'm not questioning it.
I love that. What gives you so much confidence?
The work that I put in, I know how much preparation I put in, and I know what I'm working on, and I know how to translate, so that's what gives me confidence.
When did you start to dream and envision your NBA draft night?
I'm big on staying where my feet are, so I don't like to look too far in the future, because that's when you trip on what's right in front of you, so I try to stay where my feet are, but it's definitely been hard not to, picture something this big. So I've had a pretty grand picture of it. It's time to kind of live it out.
We now bring in senior NBA writer Brian Windhorst, host of the Hoop Collective podcast. So, Brian, what are teams around the league saying about Holmgren?
Boy, do people like this kid. They love his competitiveness. They love his skill set. They love his height. They love his character. They love his makeup. They don't love his bulk. And there's many, top prospects over the years who look like Adonises, and they may have a character issue, or their character is great and they look like an Adonis, but they have a bad knee. It's not unusual for a pick not to be perfect. But this guy, the stats are good on him. The scouting is good on him. I've been hearing about him living in the upper Midwest. And he's from Minneapolis. I've been hearing about him for 3 years. There's been a huge build-up to this moment. Obviously, there's going to be some concern, but he's never been injured, and his lack of bulk has not affected him at any level to this point. So, really positive on this guy, and in a lot of years, I think he would be the #1 overall pick.
So, Matt, how do you see Holmgren's game translating to the league?
I like Holmgren's game. And in years past, you would think that bulk may be an issue. But again, as I mentioned earlier, this game is more about skill. He's not going to be out there facing Tim Duncan, Shaq, Ben Wallace, big guys like that. He's going to be out there facing, guys that probably back in the day could have been guards, but now they're playing forward and center. So I like his game. I love his versatility. I like his confidence. I saw an interview he did maybe like 3 months ago, and they asked him who the best player in the NBA was, and he hesitated for a second, and he said, it'll be me in 3 months. So confidence is a huge piece of this puzzle out here, and he lacks none of it. And again, those top 3 picks, you can shuffle them and change them however you want, but I think they're going to get a solid player in all 3 of those picks.
JJ, some people are questioning Chet's strength and ability to hold up. Obviously, the bulk, we've heard both guys talk about it. Are people focusing on the wrong thing with him?
Well, Matt had a great point yesterday, a great little anecdote about testing Devin Booker as a rookie, and Devin Booker sort of responding to that. And all rookies get tested. And what I love about Chet Holmgren is that confidence, is that competitiveness. I listed my intangibles yesterday. It's like, do you love basketball? Are you intelligent? And are you competitive? And I think Chet Holmgren, from all we know of him right now, checks all those boxes. And the best players are going to have ups and downs in their rookie year. And they are ultimately going to respond to those. And I think Chet Holmgren is one of those guys that will learn from those ups and downs and ultimately just get better and better. His ceiling is incredibly high.
We'll see where he goes in the draft tomorrow at Barclays Center. We'll have to take a quick break here, but when we return, much more on what's next for Kyrie and the Nets. Man, there is a lot going on.